So clear and slow get called out if anything. Okay, cool. Everyone's ready? Okay. Invisible disabilities often fly under able normativity's radar. I've debated rounds where I was criticized for commodifying the ballot. This assumed I was speaking for others and demands I either disclose my identity in a potentially hostile space or admit to taking advantage of oppression. In forms where I have disclosed and discussed my disability, I've been met with skepticism because I do not live up to every criteria in the able person checklist. Able normativity is informed an audience that it was impossible for disability to compete, educate, or exist alongside or as well as them. This is Maddie Stevens' experience in Lincoln Douglas debate. In a society where people with disabilities are negatively stigmatized, mental disabilities often avoid intimate discussion because they are not easily seen. In debate, we remove ourselves from real-world issues affecting real people, which allows stigma to continue. Thus, I offer the lived experience of someone who has felt the stigma as an attempt to bridge this gap. Thus, I affirm. In the status quo, discussion of gun violence and gun control is typically ascribed to mental illness. This creates the idea that those who are deemed mentally ill are inherently dangerous. In the wake of publicized shooting, we dismiss calls for increased gun control, instead declaring a greater need for focus on mental illness. This flawed conception is one that will break down through my Speech Act. Also, given recent political pushes for mental health regulation in response to gun control discussion and President Obama's speech last month, evaluative orientation is key now. CBS. Calls for targeted gun control by the President Tuesday, $500 million to improve the sharing of mental health information between law enforcement agencies who are trying to keep guns out of the hands of those who pose a risk. The executive director of Iowa for Gun Safety said mental illness having access to guns is the problem. Further, in these debates, mental illness operates silently, the unspoken condition of persons and participants in the real world. This issue is inherent to the current debate community. A debate no longer conforms to societal associations of mental illness. Thus, the role of a debate judge is to challenge systems of oppression which they can do by opening the debate space to dialogue and uncovers bodies made invisible by stigma. Hendrickson. It is common to their parts to say that a totem is depressing. We joke that it is killing us. Depression can be made invisible so easily in debate room chatter. We treat mental disorders like something to be ashamed of. Many debaters struggle with serious depression. There are those who remain silent about their depression and those who refuse to acknowledge the invisibility of their peers. Consciousness begins with openness and dialogue. If the negative not justify the inherent their counter role of the ballot frame within the debate space, then you still operate under the after role of the ballot because everything we debate under will outweigh on A, time frame because we can have immediate impacts on people's lives, B, real world applicability because our discussion can actually inform us of issues that we are directly confronted with but ignoring our everyday lives, and C, reversibility because once we expose this dialogue, it cannot be unexposed. Thus, the after role of the ballot is the best for critical education, so it doesn't matter how true neg warrants are. Also, always refer my role of the ballot because it's crucial for bringing the lived experience into the debate space. This is the only way that we can recognize that our knowledge is wrong, that we play a role in facilitating harmful norms. This brings the discussion of mental health to the forefront of our discussion where we can analyze individual experience alongside institutional harm, making the app the best intersectional approach to addressing status quo marginalization. The resolution presents us with the opportunity to discuss this issue in LD debate. Also, intellectual settings are specifically crucial for having a starting point for breaking down power structures and benefiting those who are deemed mentally ill. This is a reason why I prefer my role of the ballot, Wallace et al. Schools play a vital role in promoting intellectual, social, and emotional well-being of youth. Despite the prevalence of mental health problems, there's a gap between needs and services. They continue. It is congruent with the broader aims of education to focus on the development of social and emotional competencies that enable students to flourish within and beyond school. The real world creates constructions of mental illness by challenging conceptive behavior that deviates from the norm. The whole knows that those who are different are ill, and therefore lesser is the basis of any prejudice, which is why my value orientation is a step in the right direction for all marginalized groups. Prior questions to the NC, so I'm not excluding other groups from our discussion. Offense. Current social and political discussion regarding gun control implicitly assumes that violence stems from those deemed mentally ill. This distracts from productive discourse and policymaking. Lexington. Gun rights supporters talk about mental illness as the true cause of massacres, calling and talking about a universal check, a gruesome paving the way for the government to confiscate America's guns. Elites are talking about limiting their own capacity for protection. Such rhetoric has effects far beyond the world of gun rights. The real action in gun control is people control. It is vital to get the details right and avoid knee-jerk lawmaking. The post-Newtown discussion about mental health distracts from the obvious relationship between the availability of guns and murder rates. Because society is constantly framed those deemed mentally ill as a problem, we must reform the way that we talk about government policy making. This makes the app key because if there's a value orientation that changes the way that people view mental illness, then we can ensure that there are better policies. Next, public policy is necessary to ensure the well-being of everyone, including those who experience mental illness. Stigma currently prevents treatment for mental health by focusing on the wrong issues. Rosenberg et al. Mental health stigma reinforces treatment barriers for persons deemed to be mentally ill and reduces their ability to fully participate. Like the surgeon, generally identifies stigma as the single greatest obstructive to misplaced public perception, which sees on mental illness as the proximate underlying cause of gun violence, undermines public safety because it focuses on the wrong problems. Public policy that limits gun ownership is a step towards public safety. Thus, I affirm the resolution for a ban on the private ownership of handguns. My Speech Act is a reorientation of the way that we view the relationship between guns and those who are deemed mentally ill. By affirming the idea of a universal ban, I reject status quo discussion of gun control that is tied to prejudice against those deemed mentally ill as a first step towards inclusion. Empirical solvency is irrelevant to this position. Issues of implementation will always come second to the reorientation because we need to make sure that we address the way that society views the people that their policies directly affect. Artificial inclusion of people with mental illness is not effective when we gloss over how these people interact with these policies in the world at large. That means that use this evidence to gut check any counterplans. Also, by shifting away from the view of mental health as the problem and focusing on guns, the app helps you solve social stigma and paves the way for re-enabling those deemed mentally ill. This is necessary to break down the power structures that exploit these people. This is the only tangible change that we can make within the debate space, so we'll always have the strongest link back to the role of the ballot. Thus, the app has established that current perceptions are harmful to those deemed mentally ill, and that a value rotation where reverse stigma will be good. So here is 3 reasons why a value rotation is the best methodology. 1. Ethics is inherently related to our culture. Our unique beliefs can be shared to transform behaviors and begin rewrite the fundamental doctrines of our society. So translating this reorientation to an individual discussion that allows us to accomplish what government agencies cannot. 2. A value reorientation explicitly juxtaposes two competing ideologies so that we can understand both as opposed to a value being an idea in a vacuum, and the competing epistemologies and proves our final advocacy. And 3rd, American culture is very radical and divided on political issues such as gun control. Only a complete reversal of our perspective on this issue can be effective in canceling out deep-rooted biases. By bringing this discourse into the debate space, I allow us to deconstruct harmful connotations of mental illness that are becoming politicized in the real world. This means I control the internal into effective policymaking by pointing all legal action in the right direction. Mental and leash. Connections between mental illness and gun violence are more complex than current U.S. public opinion and legislative action allow. Gun violence has a social context that now something can be addressed in isolation. Questioning the association between guns and mental illness in no way detracts from the desire to stem gun crime. Instead of accepting the expanded authority provided by current gun legislation, we might be better served by identifying and promoting areas of common cause. Cut the card at cause. Finally, fulfilling your role as judge can reduce stigma. Endorse me on the ballot to open discourse about issues of mental health problems. Having this dialogue in an educational setting allows us to deconstruct malicious connotations of mental illness and focus on providing support. A. Creating a strong foundation for openness about mental health will make people not feel ashamed to seek help. If we don't label them as dangerous or abnormal, they will not have their problems until it's too late. B. Educational settings focus on physical health. We should learn proper exercise, good dining, how to avoid STDs. So our discussion should easily be able to also focus as much attention on mental health. And C. Reducing negative stigma and increasing our understanding of mental health issues will allow for more conversation to start in our everyday lives, and children can grow up thinking that mental health isn't a taboo subject. It's an issue that affects everyone. Thus, affirm and endorse me on the ballot. You can cut out like the little analytic at the very end.
Okay. Like the this means.
Yeah.
And you didn't read the interview, I guess.
Right.
Everything good? So what's the advocacy?
The advocacy is that we endorse a ban on the private ownership of handguns.
Okay, and so like the advocacy is that we endorse it, meaning it happens in the debate space.
Yes.
So the advocacy occurs in the debate space.
It is not a post-fed advocacy.
Cool. So now let's talk about, so your 3 points at the end that talk about why we have to open the discussion. How is this different from the other...
The ABC arguments at the bottom?
Yeah, so how is this different from all of the offense in the app? I don't know what makes this a unique argument?
Cool. So the app talks about a lot of problems that exist in the school. The Lexington card talks about the way that the current discussion is framed. The mental health and leash card talks about how we can create coalitions within our discussion. The 3 points at the end clarify why this is effective. So I can explain to you the warrants again, but it's a clarification of why this is effective within a debate space.
Okay. So it's just explaining why it's important to have these discussions.
It's there's separate justification for why endorsing me on the ballot is a good thing.
Yeah. So how do I debate this app?
You can critique my methodology. You can link other offenses to the role of the ballot.
So
you can say a value reorientation is bad. You can say that the kind of way that I frame our discussion of disability rhetoric is bad, like what Gellerstein read at Columbia.
Okay, yeah. So if we talk about so if we want to have some sort of debate about this, for example, if I have to get up and explain why you're the concept of breaking down mental
no, but see that's the problem is that you don't actually have to you don't have to debate whether or not mental illness stigma is bad. You just have to debate whether or not the way I'm doing so is bad.
Okay, so I'm limited to solely procedural arguments, basically.
I mean, no, you could also you could check solvency, you can read a counter roll about.
Yeah, so your solvency is just this concept of value reorientation, right?
No, that's the methodology.
Okay, yeah, so how, but your methodology to achieve solvency. So where do you get solvency from?
Sure. So solvency would come from when the judge endorses me on the ballot. That affirms the fact that we can open the debate space to this kind of dialogue.
So solvency comes from the value reorientation.
You mean if that's what leads to the solvency?
So solvency comes you don't solve for the app until the judge signs the ballot?
I would say that the solvency occurs when we affirm the value reorientation within the debate space.
Okay, so the value reorientation is the solvency.
I would say that's what leads to the solvency.
Okay, so what is the solvency specifically?
The solvency is that we open the debate space to this dialogue, which means that we can address issues of mental illness stigma.
Okay.
We can prevent stigma from happening within our sphere of debate.
Do you still get if the judge does not sign the ballot for you?
That would be a rejection of the value reorientation.
But does solvency still happen then? It doesn't happen.
I would say it doesn't happen.
Okay, so in order for your app to solve for anything, you require a signature on the ballot.
I would say that's the way that we can symbolically endorse the app on the ballot. We can affirm
but
the
that
value
is the stance that you're taking, that you require a signature on the ballot to solve for the app.
I would say that that's not the only kind of solvency. I would say that
so
the app is...
how else?
Sure. So I would say that when the judge endorses me on the ballot, that is a form of endorsement for the value orientation, which opens a debate space. I would say that the fact that I've read this app probably means that we can have a discussion about this. If you choose to ignore that discussion, that's probably a bad thing.
Okay, cool. So I'll take prep starting now.
/Lone Dog.
Yep. And I'm definitely not reading everything in this doc, but it's going to be top down.
Okay, how many offs is it?
2.
Okay.
Christian, did you see Khalil?
The doc is called Against Porn.
Yes, that was so funny. Thanks.
Is it in that folder or is it just in
In
that
the
Like,
folder.
I think my 6 biggest supporters.
So the order will be 2 off AC.
Okay.
Can I use your stand?
Yeah.
You say you don't get the speech now because we're going to one
So we want that to
content
pull up.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah, I'm not going to use this.
You can just shorten it. Oh, if you
Yeah, I
want
don't
like
think it'll
use,
do.
you can use part of the table. I can
Okay,
just-
yeah, I'll do that then.
Just move.
Have you all debated them this year?
3 times.
How'd you do?
3 times.
You'll get them back.
It's Taylor reading.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. 1 sec.
This is right at eye level.
I remember watching this debate last year at the NDT where
Just watch.
he's the 1AR and he doesn't listen to the whole block. He just like
Okay, so it's just you said 2 off
it
aces.
was
Yeah.
funny.
Okay.
He had headphones and he was just like dancing.
Is everyone good?
And they won. I think.
Good? Okay. Interpretation. The opposite prevent a concrete strategy, the opposition of their advocacy through systemic political institutions outside the debate community, violation permitted, presents an integration violation not tried to limit that time that interrogation to specific facts outside the debate community to become the revolutionary hero limits and also one scenario set formulated strategy turned to replicable acts. The strategy is that of the architect philosopher Newton. We cannot simply identify phenomena without having to choose us become an architect philosopher student too. We intend to sit around and be analyzing that action, possessing, develop theory, which develop for one more than one time. We want to develop a system which is good, and you relate to concrete analysis, concrete conditions that are actually always be relevant. Revolutionary cultists, despite something we cannot reach the level of consciousness, revolution cultists becomes divided from the people instead of serving as a vanguard becomes a hero. The courageous actions and all these who rise to highly conscious, nor do they produce changes and expectations of the people. Revolutionary process not a conclusion true. Revolution does not take courageous action. They also try to advance people in such a manner to transform the situation. Vote nay. The judge should only vote for political options that truly activate debate stages. The reason for one ground. We're here to engage how power relations interact with different political methodologies. We lose not just our statements, we lead to teams, turn and analysis of action. Action combining analysis power can be good. This is a call for the government to interact with material oppression, violence, revolution, and nation state. Our examples how the app could address a political strategy outside topical plan, proving we provide freedom within limits to solve for the framework offense. 2. Minority participation in adopting view power based on philosophical abstraction turns and attempts to engage politics minorities need to have a political analysis of place material conditions they face in debate. Less problem for people of color, but hooks 90. Contemporary discourse still critique, critical voice and specialized audience radical thinking has to be transformative about critical break notion of authority must be reflected in habits of being. The discussion of ruthless and radical and such, and without a concrete knowledge theory supposed to remove and discuss theoretical discussions, disruptive critical acts which support radical liberation struggle. 3. Revolutionary education, contextualizing active suppression around material change and the sexual pride, political training. We must become more effective at ignoring politics only, seeds the politics to the right and uniquely hurts people of color. We must gain the tools to fight power and house power of our term. Diva Nixon. Policies are the codification of power relations. Changing the world means changing the rules, and organizing how the changing rules how it can be organized for separating flaws. We realize the truth power without contested conversation. Rule the answer is no. Double no. People of color racism dominates every aspect of policy and takes place in shaping of demands by getting policy where we can take the demands to the next level. Our demands become law. Interaction with the students as well as the struggle with business. The bureaucrats, technical language, the resistance by discriminating is work, demanding what's happening, right, and make policy work an integral part of organizing. Require right sharpening. We need to develop capacity to translate our information to effect the public conversation. We are fighting our problems and arrange solutions based closer to this and how things to be. 4. Existential ethics. The affirmative interpretation, political change versus ethics. The Eurocentric notion of ethics is a way of thinking. Your conceptual ethics versus ethic is action or existential ethics. This means that Western purism can be potentially justified on need. The what is ethical, what is factual and logical. The purest abstraction words first from action. The pursuit of self is exercise and self-expression. Primary culture is characterized by an existential ethics based on the actual behavior. The one result of the tendency to make philosophers irrelevant and to diverse work-making decision-making capacity. They're critical because they say the imperialistic behavior of the European has rejected a theme in European development. The theories succeed to make the European possible everything, and the good far outweighs the bad. 5. Engagement. Their app doesn't have an effect on academic because it doesn't claim to do anything. Only when the app does something we debate, because otherwise the advocacy is malleable enough to de-link anything. The app speaking first and determines they don't have to defend what they've said. The debate is about contesting truth claims, voting for the best liberation strategy. Assumes that I don't have the capacity to engage with the extent that A, there's no burden of rejoinder. The reason that they're winning the app is a reason to vote because the A is supposed to engage. There's nothing to engage. The reason why extending the app is sufficient. B, there's no possibility to debate liberation strategies dropping them, preventing us from debating about issues that can actually help you press. C, your argument is that you should win because you have read the app. I can test the claim because you can't win if I win this argument. Next, the model of debate is bad, so it makes solely about procedurals and dating. It encourages a culture of unproductive, unjustified superiority. It makes us more likely to act in biased ways. Turns case, Berkman 15. We know from research into implicit bias being on the receiving end of prejudice doesn't mean you know Harvard, software reset, antediluvian attitude to make matters worse. The fight the psychological pitfall is moral saturation. The act of calling out others' prejudice fail you jump your job. What advice would probably solidify your own unworked substitute and falling for biases. There's no easier way to avoid introspection than to accuse someone else into seeing yourself biased, cognitive by the collar app, wide, spelled HD, sunset, climate, confidence, their morality is superior, more superior, flooded, working on a nose, more likely to be sexist, racist than the one who doesn't think they can be. Next off, the ballot acts as a token promoting slacktivism, which precludes future support. Christopherson et al. The slacktivism token spread supporting social cause with lack of a significant effort. Consumers have multiple avenues to engage in token works. This includes signing a petition. They allow consumers to affiliate with cost little effort. Consumers have laid in slacktivist fashion. Empirical work on moral licensing economies. Our 2006 found that after consumers imagine the community service activities, they were less likely to donate. Participation in charity support will lead to decrease. Inclusion to races, MTI tolerance includes nothing really changes. Zizek 8. Right to narrate, to victimize the experience of the power to recognize others at the end of the day, when the root of post-colonial exploitation, the intolerance of the other, the political, economic structures that's imperceptibly transformed into students like economic drama and substitute corruption. American academia is financial is not only there to buy many American critical intellectuals, but conceptual, radical to having them safe environment, this small class dealing with race and all to be defense against the identification. Let's talk as much possible the necessity of radical change. Make sure nothing will really change. The third way will own radicality ultimately seems to empty yes or no obligates no to anything determinate. How to determine. They make the ballot commodity that makes social transformation impossible. Brian 13. There is a contradiction in the heart of all academic theory that has potentially being emancipatory. The question is how this theory can avoid being a commodity. Emancipatory theory reveals obstinate its aim at political change to prevent rather only as a moment of autopsy of academia. It does function as commodity. The function is not to intervene in broader political system despite how we think about it, rather to carry out another iteration of discourse, categorical discourse. This is supercharged by the fact that he's saying that he needs you to sign the ballot in order for this value. He said that any sort of not signing the ballot was a rejection of the struggles of people with mental illness. He literally said that it would be a bad thing if I tried to engage, if I tried to prove that like his role of the ballot is bad, if I tried to prove that what he's like his end goal, he said it would be bad in context, if I tried to prove any of that, which limits me solely to procedural arguments. Already felt like specific nitpicky things about his discourse means that he is not actually allowing you to engage in the app and have a debate about contesting truth claims. This means he's just trying to commodify the ballot and make the struggle about an auto win for him. So that's going to preclude all. So now go to the stuff about why he like controls the internal links to policy making. Don't let him say that don't let him get up and say he perms because he controls the internal link. We cannot have a value. He's going to say that we cannot have any sort of policy or any sort of political activism without reiterating your values first. The problem is here is I explain that it is constitutive and necessary to the model of debate to have some sort of political activism outside of this room. We need to have some sort of, I'm not saying that he has to defend a political, I'm not saying he has to defend a policy option, I'm saying he has to defend some sort of political action outside the room. For example, a violent revolution would be sufficient to de-link himself from my first off. This means that don't let him get up and perm it and just make arguments of why value reorientation is key. So I'm explaining why we cannot have a value reorientation if I cannot engage in his value reorientation. Otherwise, we are not actually going to challenge these values. We cannot actually conceptualize the values that we are trying to reorient ourselves towards. So that means basically very clear. He doesn't get any of the don't let him make preclusionary arguments. And basically, I'm proving why this is an independent disadvantageous performance. The second opposite independent disadvantageous performance is an independent reason to drop him.
Before we start Quiroz, could you show me where you cut the two cards that you?
Yeah. Do you want me to just do it on your computer?
Yeah, you can just turn them red or something.
Yeah. I marked it on the computer.
Yeah, I think the first card was identification or something. The second one was a discourse.
I'm just trying to find it.
No problem.
Yeah. Just this one. Don't want me to just delete it.
Oh, is it just I just have to know.
It's just this discourse.
Okay, that's fine.
And the other one was this identification.
Okay, cool.
No, sorry.
You don't have to.
Yeah, no, it was determinate.
Determinate? Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
So you said I don't have to endorse a political, legislative action, but you say I have to have a political strategy outside of debate.
Yeah, no, just something, literally anything that is not an impact solely in the debate space.
So does the people in the debate community not matter?
No, they matter, but I'm saying that they're agents for change outside of the debate space.
Okay, sure. They also exist outside of the debate space, but why is it bad to solve problems in the debate space?
I'm saying that you have to do this through like if you challenge these like hegemonic structures through your speech act, but if you like link it back to hegemonic structures outside of the debate space, it is going to be more effective. Because it's going to create more of a like.
Okay, it's going to be more effective, but why does that mean the app is bad?
Yeah. So basically, first you can look at my my existential ethics reason, which explains that like having any sort of like your abstract notion of political change, just like the idea of like just speaking is enough to have some sort of change.
Sure.
Is going to always.
So, but you never actually contested the substance of the app, right? Like, you never put any ink on the app.
Well, yeah, there's independent sets.
So, would it make sense for people who are stigmatized as being mentally ill and dangerous to go have a violent revolution outside of the debate space?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think that in any world that would have good consequences for people who are stigmatized as mentally ill to have a violent revolution or something?
I mean,
like
I think that I think that any sort of revolution would be probably a good thing.
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
So
let's go to the offs. So is the first off theory, or it's pretty much just a K that you write with inter-violation, right?
Yeah, it's basically just saying it's like an independent reason to drop you. So those 5 reasons.
Yeah, so
are
it's
5
not like a
independent
theory
reasons
show. There's no
yeah.
RBIs. We're not having a debate about anything like that. It's just a K.
It doesn't appeal to fairness, if that's what you're asking.
Awesome. So then on the Newton card, it says like we despise those outside of debate. Why does the app not include those outside of debate if the app claims to be solving for an issue of stigma in like one sphere?
Because you claim to solve for the issues inside solely the debate community, and you decide
right. So if
to,
I don't claim to solve for the
issues
outside, why does it matter?
Because I'm saying that it's important to turn our focus away from solely the debate space and to look towards the.
Why can't we? Yeah, sure. But why can't we do that afterwards? Why doesn't the perm solve?
Well, so first I explained why the perm doesn't solve.
Yeah, you said like the link to policymaking is different, but I'm not understanding why there's like any competition.
Why there's any competition between this? Because the fact that you said in process that your advocacy happens inside the debate space. That is my link.
Okay, sure. So what was the ground argument and minority engagement argument?
So my ground argument explains why we have to debate is about testing these truth claims and having like a discussion. So by saying that the only way for me to engage with the act is just to like do these nitpicky like discursive things because it would be.
But why does your case solve that to just include issues outside of the debate space?
Because then you allow me to have like a debate about the best liberation strategies outside of this room. Like,
so you can only engage if it's outside of the debate. Is what you're saying.
What do you mean?
Hold on. And on the second off, what is the slacktivism argument? It's just like signing a piece of paper is like bad.
It's basically saying you're commodifying the ballot.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You want your flow?
Oh, yeah, I do. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Voting prep. How do I exclude other minority groups?
My hook's at 90 evidence.
Yeah, I know. What's the argument?
Yeah, so basically saying that having sort of just like these like abstract concepts, like discussions about like speech acts generally, are going to exclude minority participation because it doesn't actually interact with the material oppression that are faced in the world.
Cool. the second off, you said like I said it's bad if you try to engage in the app.
Yeah. The Berkman 15 evidence, which explains why having an like.
No, the other off.
Oh, the Slack you was on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the analytic argument I made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said the fact that you're saying that it's like bad for me to like engage with your role of the ballot. Like you said that it was a bad thing for me to do. That means
To
that
engage
I can
in your role of the ballot?
to contest your role of the ballot.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 104 left.
Are you reading anything new?
No, I have like a 2-second overview that I also have pre-written if you want to look at it.
It's okay.
Okay. Order's gonna be a brief overview. You want to flow on the AC flow. So that'll include like her last second response with the policy making internal link. Then we'll go down the offs in order. Sorry, my computer. Okay. Cool. Everyone's ready? So again, starting with the overview. The neg misses the point. Extend Hendricks and that issues of mental health are not discussed in the scope of the CDS further explains that this is currently leading to bad policy making because it ignores disabled bodies. That means that you can always permit it for arguments because of the fact that we have to have some kind of way to start this discussion in the first place before we can even engage in what is the best way to go about doing so. Her arguments and our response is she says we have to have some kind of political strategy to engage in this. My argument is that we don't even know what this issue is in the first place. No one talks about that. Is why we need to have the app. That's why the perm is always going to self. I'll get to the case in a minute, but that is also the reason why you can extend the rest of the frame because the fact that she never can test that is game over. Extend Maddie's narrative is key to allowing us to understand the issue so we can address it. And the wall score that explains why this has to occur in an educational setting like debate. Those are all reasons why this is specific to debate, why addressing it in the debate space will always be the best option. She never contests this argument. She's also conceding the weighing of her words, which said that I will always that way on time frame, real world applicability, and reversibility. Those are game over issues. That means that I'm always going to have complete solvency on the actual offense of the AC where she has no actual angle on the AC. So at that point, when she tries to make one argument on the text of the AC, she says that I don't have the internal into policy because of the fact that it's not about a political strategy. It's about having just some kind of strategy outside of the debate space. My argument is that we have to start with the debate space. That's the only way that we can actually have a community that accepts this issue and that accepts this issue and has the value orientation. We're not going to be able to have value orientation in the real world completely first. That's why we have to start like this. She said that we have to have some kind of like radical violent strategy. But if we have a violent revolution with people who are feared because of the fact that people think they are violent, that is just going to lead to more statements. So any kind of other strategy that she is talking about will never be effective. That's why we have to reverse the app. At that point, extended conceded office, extended Latin which said that the current policies are bad and the mental these cards says we can create coalition by actually towards the value orientation. That is a game over issue. Those always that way because of the conceded weighing issue that I already extended. At that point, the text of the AC is what you're voting on at the end of this round because she never puts any ink on it. On the offs. Starting on the first off, she says that her interpretation is that we have to have a concrete strategy outside of the base, but she never has any brain line for any of her engagement arguments. So insofar as she never contests why solving within the base space is good, if I prove to you that I'm just not actively bad to things that are not outside of the base space, there is no impact. Is also good. And the argument first on her Newton argument, she said that despite outside of the base space, that is not responding to the Hendricks card. So you can extend the Hendricks card. That's inherently why this has to be happening in the base space. To the fact that in these base spaces we have a specific culture that allows us to disguise these issues of mental illness. With that, it's a reason why it's invisible state. But that's the reason why it is different from the way that we actually engage in this issue outside of the base space. She is ignoring the fact that there are differences within the base space and outside of the base space. It would be worse if we endorse her advocacy because that means that we create a cure-all that solves for everyone at the same time, whereas the debate space is a unique space that I'm solving for, which is the reason why we have to address the issues that are specific to the AC. Then go to her ground argument. She says she can't do. She has no way to engage with the fact she has to be able to engage my app. But there's no reason she has no brain lines to why the arguments in the base space are something that she can't engage. She can just prove that but methodology is bad and why endorsing me in the ballot would be bad. That would just contest all my offers to the fact that I don't go to any office from outside the base. There's no reason why she had to either that point that she has no loss of ground. And on her next argument, she said the minority wouldn't be able to participate. That is not actually addressing the point. The whole argument on AC that we have to get rid of the stigma because that's the only way to include my minorities understand the first place. The whole idea of mental illness, which creates the idea of people saying there's black communal aggression and other issues like that. That's the reason why we have to solve the stigma in the first place. That is a game over issue because she's not actually endorsing the fact that the app is the way that we solve for all kind of minority stigma bias as a starting point. That is a key framing issue for you because as far as the app is a starting point to get to any of the offer that she is hinting at in her case, that is a automatic perm. She says that we can't perm do both. You can always perm, do the affirmative, and then also have a political strategy outside of the base. The net benefits are the value rotation in the app, which always can say that the political strategy that we advocate for outside of the base will be better. That is always net beneficial. She never contests. She just says the perm is not possible, but as far as I'm showing you the perm is clearly possible, and there's always going to be net beneficial. You don't get a due response to that in the next speech. It's game over. Then also you can cross those arguments to hooks because that's the reason why I'm not including my word population. She can't cross the hooks argument. Then on the examination card, she says that I'm engaging in some kind of form of abstraction, which is always going to prevent us from engaging in political strategy. The argument of the AC that's coming from the hydrogen card is that we can't actually form a political strategy to the fact that people don't value the opinions of people who are mentally stigmatized. That is the reason why we can never incorporate their opinions in our political strategy in the first place. That would lead to more commodification to the fact that I would be advocating for political strategy that I can't engage in. So, extend the perm. At that point, it's game over. She has no offense in that off. On the second off, on the second argument, that is also game over. You go to the argument to the bottom of the AC, you cross by those into the ABC points to Y, and throw something that would take away the taboo from discussing issues in the first place. That is the reason why it doesn't matter if you don't have to endorse this every single round that you debated, because insofar as the reversibility claim you can cross by here is going to be that we can't re-hide the stigma. That's the reason why we lead to some kind of policy. The reversibility claim that is conceded is a game over, because it means that these slack arguments literally have no impact. So those perms, you can't go to the second off. It's pretty clear half options.
Okay, I have 153 left.
Cool.
I'll take it now. Starting on the first off, then the second off, then the second off, then,
Sorry, problem.
Actually, like, quickly on the app, then the first off, then the second off. With starting with an overview that you don't have to flow.
So AC in the Austin order?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Is everyone good? Too many things conceded off of both my offs. So first, he has conceded the entirety of my engagement arguments and my working efforts to explain why it turned the case. There was an implication that it turned the case in my last speech, and he concedes the entirety of the Berkman evidence, which means that he is never going to get any of the impacts in the AC insofar as he demands about without allowing any room for contestation. That means that even if all the impacts are really good coming out of the AC, even if he extends all of the debate-based good arguments, I'm saying that none of these arguments are ever going to actually happen. So first, go on to the AC. So first he explains he tries to perm the AC. He says that he tries to perm my offs, explaining why he has bad. Well, he first explains why there leads to bad policy because he's exclusively disabled. I'm not saying that he has to defend a political actor. He can defend an actor of people who have people like he can defend an actor of like people like making maybe like having a publicity movement to end this thing. I'm not saying he's defend a topical app. I'm saying that he has to defend an app that impacts outside of just the debate space. And he acts off of these. He tries to send laws and explain and tries to make a conclusion. I'm saying this happens. Why it's important to have this discussion in the debate space. The problem is these impacts are not unique to having an advocacy solely rooted in the debate space. You can still have this education about the stigma against the people who are mentally ill by having a discussion about like the impacts in the real world and explaining and linking that back to why it's important to have the discussion in the debate space. So I'm not saying the discussions can't occur in the debate space. I'm just saying that the impacts have to reach beyond this room particularly. So this means that it's not going to none of his proposed arguments matter. But if you know by that, let's go to the engagement argument. Game over here. First, extend my engagement argument on there's an independent reason to vote him down. He goes 100% conceded. At this point, if you're evaluating the flow, you have to vote for me because he concedes a reason why, even if all of the arguments out of the app are really important, even if the perm is true, no matter what happens, I'm saying you cannot engage the app. The way he read the AC in the first speech means that my anti-strategy should not one that engages with his value reorientation, which there's no debate to be had, which destroys any possibility for debate in the first place. So extend engagement thereafter doesn't have an effect on active because it doesn't claim to do anything only when the app does something we debates and the otherwise their advocacy is malleable enough to delink anything, and the asking person getting the perm means they don't have to defend what they've said. So this means he doesn't actually defend anything. It means his value reorientation is ultimately useless because you don't have to actually defend your value reorientation. We have to make sure that it's the best one before implementing it, and I'm saying that we have no ability to determine whether or not it's the best one insofar as he did not allow room for contesting these true claims. So next, you can extend that A, there's no burden of rejoinder. The reason winning the app is the reason focus and next supposed to engage it, and B, there's no possibility to debate liberation strategies, drop them for preventing us from debating about issues that can actually help the oppressed, and C, his argument is that he should win because he's read the app. I contest the claim that you cannot win if I win this argument. This entire paragraph goes conceded. You can call it conceded after round. Clear implications of why you drop him. It's conceded on the flow. Evaluate. You have to look at the flow round. Next, go to the Berkman evidence. Goes dropped. I actually know why his model to be decided because solely about procedurals. He literally said the only way I can engage with the app and answer the app is by nitpicking discursive things out of the app, which explains why he encourages a culture of unreflective, unjustified superiority that makes this more like an act of bias-based turns case. That's American evidence. It literally says that we know from research implicit bias being on the receiving and oppression doesn't mean you don't harbor yourself. And it literally says nobody's more likely to be sexist than the person who thinks that they can't be. This means that he's creating a system where an echo chamber in which no one is contesting his viewpoints. Turns the app, means we're not getting any value reorientation. He drops Berkman. It came over there. Now go to my slacktivism arguments. Slacktivism is way undercover. He literally spent 20 seconds on it in the last speech. He says that it takes away time, and he says that it's taking, he says that he doesn't endorse any sort of specific strategy. But what I'm saying here is my personal evidence explains why he is he's commodifying the ballot. He's saying he's commodifying the voices and the struggle of people with mental health issues in the debate space by saying that that is the reason why he should get the ballot specifically. So you can extend my Christopherson evidence and my Zizek evidence. My Zizek evidence include my inclusion in the debate space and empty out tolerance and ensures nothing really changes. He drops his Zizek evidence. So any of his reasons why we have to include people in the debate space and why why debate space is a starting point, which is an argument he makes over and over again in the 1AR. Any reason why discussions about the debate space are a starting point are taken out by Zizek. It literally says that inclusion in the debate space is an empty act of tolerance. It means he's going to, symbolically, sure, he's tolerating me, but he's hiding any underlying assumptions because he never actually went to challenge them. Now go to my Bryant evidence. He drops Bryant. It literally says he makes a body that makes social transformation possible. This turns the case. Game over on Bryant. Bryant says that he is making social transformation possible. It literally says that the emancipatory theory reveals something that isn't aimed at political change or intervention, rather only as a moment in the ongoing autopiesis of academia. So this means he's always just going to reinforce the same norms that he's trying to contest here. So let's go to the perm actually really quickly on the ground standard. First, the perm doesn't make any sense because my institution's good arguments explain not why you can it's not an advocacy. It's not saying that it would be good to have political engagement. It is saying that it is actively Eurocentric and it is actively exclusionary to have impact solely rooted in the debate space. I'm not saying he says that I have no reasons why debate space arguments are bad. My arguments are when you have an argument solely about the debate space that does not extend into the material conditions of oppression, that is when it becomes bad. Because the AC did not talk about those conditions of oppression in the app, that means that he's not going to get the perm. Because this off indicts the fact that he did not read those arguments in the AC. So he cannot get a perm on this speech act. That is impossible. So do not let him get his Hendrickson evidence and his Wallace evidence says cross application, because here I'm explaining why the problem is that these are the only impacts are inside the debate space. He's not trying to engage with the politics outside of the debate space. You can actually, just in case you want to vote on those arguments, you can extend my existential ethics argument, which he drops. It says the affirmative interpretation of political change replicates the Eurocentric notion of ethics. That's my Ani card. Very clear round. He drops two different places where it turns the case, my Berkman evidence and my slacktivism argument, and he drops the engagement argument. Means it's game over.
Okay. Starting prep. going to be overview that you again want to flow at the top of the AC. So you can probably just extend it out of the last speech. Then we're going to do same order, offs in order, and then voters. So AC offs in order, voters. Okay. Everyone's ready? The easiest way to vote after this round is that the roll of the ballot is never contested. You can extend the Henderson card, the Maddie Stevens narrative, and the Walsh card, which says that has to happen specifically in the debate space, because the fact that is where this kind of abuse takes place. That is the only way that we can make change, by actually changing the institution that allows students to get rid of their oppression and actually feel whether they can experience the debate space differently. Making a change within the sphere is the only way to actually empower people who are explaining this to me. And so, insofar she never gets that different way, that this kind of stigma is different outside of the debate space. That is a reason why you go to slow off this argument. That came over because the fact that I can contextualize that the anti-representation, the big piece of offense back to this argument. That means that if she doesn't have any kind of alternative, which she claimed that she does in the last piece, that means that this has will never outweigh the abs of that point is game over issue. You can extend the abs of that the election card said that the current policies are going to be bad, and that is also the best of these cards that we can create coalition by actually including this is going on the debate space. As I explained in the last speech, the oppression that occurs outside of the debate space is different than that which occurs inside the debate space. If I am showing specifically why it's good to get rid of that with inside the debate space, none of her arguments even apply. At that point, all the arguments I made on her flow of the perm are going to go 100% conceded because the fact she's not contesting the internal warrant, it's game over. Go to her offs, they don't even make sense. On the first off, overview the off, the perm is not the way she framed. She said that we can't perm because the fact that it's necessarily two competing advocacies. My argument is just that we can have a sequential perm that would solve all abuse because the fact that we can always have change within the debate, but then we can focus on after the debate, outside of what means that we always give the net benefits of referring the arguments in the debate, but insofar as the alpha is concede that's always giving that benefit, that goes 100%, has 100% now credence on that because the fact that she is never putting any angle on that means that I have 100% solving on the perm. So even if you buy that she wins arguments on the flow, she's not doing nearly enough work on the argument that a sequential perm would solve all of the abuse in this round. You are voting that because the fact she doesn't give you a reason not to that's sufficient. At that point, you don't even look at this off, but we'll go down the line by line. She tries to the hook star saying that we have an existential ability to abstract abstraction. It's not the same thing as framing. I'm saying that we have to shape the way we frame our issues because that's the only way to affect our policy in the first place. So you get across my mark instead of in the last piece we have to control the internal length of this argument by actually making sure that our policies are good and our activism is good before we can actually engage in that activism. But that is a reason why the average a prior question to any of the arguments that she's talking about the ACC is not indicting the average, she's indicting the status quo when it's towards the average trier diet. Doesn't even make any sense. I specifically said that chase the levels of our offense against the inherent to the app. That is the Henderson card and the CBS card. This is an issue now, this is an issue within the debate, but she is not answering the argument because the fact that we are currently facing the issue that people face is a material reality that these people face. That is why the Maddie Stevens narrative, the Stevens narrative, reflective of this kind of experience. The people who are experiencing mental illness are not experiencing the same material reality as everyone else. This is their material reality within this space, but that is the reason why I'm solving for this. They face the issue of silence, and that is the reason why the reversibility claim that I crossed from the last week is a complete take on all of her arguments. At that point, she has no offense. Also, she tried to extend the engagement center, saying that I didn't enter her engagement center, but I completely entered her engagement center last week. The whole argument that if she doesn't lose any ground, that she can engage in the same way before that we need that there is no use on engagement. She said that she can't engage because the fact that she's being nitpicky or whatever. I never said that. I specifically said she should engage in the role of ballot debate. She should engage in my value rotation methodology. That is a way that we can actually have a better debate under the role of ballot. Before she never contested the role of ballot anyway. That means that there is no abuse. So at that point, you can't give her credence on this because now she's going to read another role of ballot anyway. I also specifically told her that she can engage in multiple ways. She doesn't give you a bright line for why she has to be able to engage in like a political way. That's the reason why you don't need to vote there. On the activism market, again, crossed by the reversibility claim, that is 100% take off because it means that we're not commodifying because the fact that we can create real change and that it is not just for my sake because the fact that we can't reverse this claim in the first place. That's a weighing issue. Concede at the issue is why my office always confers. That means that the commodification arguments don't make sense. The drop GJ thing literally doesn't matter. She concedes that solvency. It's on your flow. Vote out there. Pretty easy.
Sit down.
Right.
Can I see Hendrickson and then your paragraph on
Yeah.
the engagement argument and GJ?
Yeah. So this is the engagement, and then if you just like scroll down, this stuff will be done there.
Oh, do you want your flash drive?
Oh yeah, thanks.
Just delete the after that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not fun. Where's the computer here? Sure.
microphone.
That's cool. Camera? That's sick.
Well, this is the camera. This is just a beefed up mic.
That one has a mic too, right?
Yeah, but I only use that one because it's bigger and better.
Alright, so we split.
Yeah, it's good. I guess I'll go first. I voted affirmative. I think that the problem for me is that this one argument that I think you are kind of winning, which is this question of an engagement argument, a burden to rejoinder, etc., etc. You say in cross-sex is not a question of fairness. So my question now is, what is the impact to not having a burden of rejoinder? What is the impact to not having engagement? I think that what you're trying to do is kind of like meld the two offs together by using the impact, like by using the second off to impact the first off, but like you don't really do that internal link analysis for me in the first speech, and I'm not really too sure what would the internal link be between the possibility of engagement and developing a legitimate political strategy. I think that you should be going more for these procedural arguments, whereas like you don't have a stable advocacy, and that allows you to, like, you should just go for stable advocacies in this debate, because he does just go for a permutation that's just like, look, you know, the reversibility or the ability to unveil these kind of social norms is what allows us to develop a better political action. I think that your Bryan evidence kind of tries to get at what he's doing in terms of like it becomes an apolitical discussion that is literally an echo chamber, but I think that the question for me that you need to answer is, well, the question becomes reversibility, right? Even if there's a possibility of it being an echo chamber, what about the possibility of it not being an echo chamber, right? Like that reversibility question where it's like, if we do the affirmative, then you literally cannot reverse the discourse that has occurred in this particular space. So even if it can be an echo chamber, it can be something else that is more liberatory, and it's the possibility of it being liberatory, right? The possibility of it not, or the inability for us to reverse that discourse that I should be voting affirmative on. And I think that that's kind of like the sequencing argument that he's going for throughout this debate. But I think that if you go for your stable advocacies argument more, then the question becomes whether you could legitimately question the reversibility of that discourse or not, and you can question whether it is an echo chamber or not, right? I think you should frame this debate around the procedurals question, but I don't think you should just give up your fairness impact in cross-sex, because I think that at the end of the debate, for me, the question is, what is the impact of voting negative? What is the impact of voting affirmative? I think that both of y'all are dropping a lot on the flow, but neither of y'all are pointing out to me or isolating an impact for me to vote on and doing that kind of weighing analysis for me in this debate. I think that he does that from the AC, and that's kind of what wins the ballot for me, at least in terms of like framing the debate for me, in terms of like, even if it is true that it is an echo chamber, it is still irreversible, which means that there's a possibility of it becoming a liberatory strategy, taking off the tabooness of discussing disabilities in debate, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So I think that if you just do a better job of impact analysis, or at least not giving up your impact in cross-sex, I think that it's an easier negative ballot. Because Alex, I think that you are kind of just like shape-shifting or changing these the advocacy, because at first you just like bring this to, I'm not really too sure what is the impact of the affirmative in the 1AC. I think that instead of having these ABC 1, 2, 3 kind of like weighing arguments, you usually like, look, the affirmative is trying to deal with the ways in which we discuss gun control and mental illness, right? It's not a question of like whether we challenge it in this debate space or not. It's a question of the discourse that undergirds gun control in the first place, right? You should be critiquing that idea of individualism, the individuality that necessitates ableist violence in order for it to make sense, in order for it to be coherent. So for gun control to make sense in the first place, it requires a non-rational, violent, pathologized object, which is the disabled body, right? And by bringing that discussion to this space, we have the possibility of value reorientation, whatever. But I think that you need to have a better like forefronting of that impact analysis in the 1AC, instead of having like the ABC 1, 2, 3 reversibility time frame, or at least for me, right? I think that you're kind of like having different categories of the impact without actually explaining the impact in the 1AC.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So you would take out the things at the bottom or the reversibility stuff like at the top?
Well, I kind of agree with her. I'm not really too sure what the difference is between those two.
So just like take out the stuff at the bottom and clarify. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that you should just be explaining more, because like you're saying it in the 1AC in terms of like how we pathologize people as irrational, but I think that you need to do a better job of explaining how gun control is contingent on that. Like I think your Lexington evidence starts to get at that in terms of we require this concept of like someone who's crazy in order to have a concept of controlling them. Right, but I think that you need to do a better job of explaining how that leads to other policies that lead to forms of social control. It's like rationalize those forms of social control.
Okay, so you want me to impact that to like why the app solves or something in the debate space?
Yeah, do a better job of like what the impact is to voting affirmative rather than just being like voting aft for the discourse that we produce.
Okay.
Right, and it not being reversible.
Okay, that makes sense.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't read a fairness voter in the NC.
Mm-hmm.
I was just more trying to like use engagement as like I guess an impact turn to the role. I'm not sure, like more like the controlling the internal link to being able to like discuss the issues he's talking about in the K. Should I have read fairness in the NC?
I think so.
Okay.
If you're gonna go for stable advocacies, you should go for this means that it moots negative ground because the negative can't have a stable link argument, a stable violation argument, anything like that if there's no stable advocacy.
Okay.
So I think generally in the 2AR there's a lack of coverage, and that is even if you're right on a lot of issues, there were just a lot of blanks to fill in. I agree with a lot of how Christian frames debate, but I think where we disagree is even though you don't have a fairness voter for the stable advocacy. So my reasons why you don't have a stable advocacy or I didn't see it's really stable advocacy are very similar to Christian, but I do think the neg does a sufficient job on the engagement argument to explain outside of fairness why there's intrinsic harm to not having that stable advocacy, specifically that you can't engage with the value orientation. And this is important because if she can't make any arguments and you don't allow for any room to contest, therefore we can't know whether or not this value orientation is good or not, or productive or not, and that's taken as given. I think maybe or maybe this is not true, but I don't think there was enough coverage on it. I think if I don't evaluate this debate on a technical level, if I evaluate on the substantive level, I think I could also vote on the Birkin or the Zizek analysis. So maybe it's not an echo chamber, but I think the neg does establish that if it is an echo chamber, and I think there's a high probability that there is, being that I don't think I see a good articulation from the affirmative for why it wouldn't be. It's contested. It's not really contested. That there's some sort of harm from like just doing this in some sort of academic setting. It's not really a mandatory, just some sort of ruse, and that there's harm because we're just like there's some harm to saying like, oh, we're solving for this impression when in reality we're not doing anything. I think there's some net harm out of that. So it's not like if there is if it happens to be emancipatory, like by some chance, great. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I think in the latter case, if it doesn't happen, she's articulating some sort of harm. I also called for your the Hendrickson argument. So your argument is just that there's something unique to this debate space that makes it so I don't need some sort of real advocacy because the debate space is really, really unique, and what works in the debate space might not work in the real world. So I think that is a compelling reason. However, I don't think the Hendrickson card quite says that. So the Hendrickson card says that in debate we tend to like say, oh, so depressed that I'm a debate determinative. But I don't see a reason why it says it. I didn't see the word or warrants for why it was unique to the debate space. So why wouldn't this apply to like a quiz bowl tournament or any sort of academic confrontation? Or why is it like, do people not use the word, oh, I'm so depressed in like college or outside the real world? It just said that debate is one of those spaces where we just kind of disguise depression. It didn't say it was like a unique space or how it disguised depression was unique. So I didn't think the Hendrickson card actually said or what you claimed it to say. And for that reason I didn't evaluate that argument.
Alright, so just a couple questions.
Yeah.
First on what you were just saying about Hendrickson, do you think it would have been more compelling if I had leveraged the narrative that was unique to debate as a reason why this is like a debate specific issue that we have to focus on?
I think definitely that would help because I think Hendrickson by itself is not sufficient. It just says debate is one of the experiences. You could also make arguments for why like it is bad to focus on like tons of different experiences. Well, there's like kind of like some sort of limits argument for why, or specifically why we as debaters like know the most about this, and because we are participating, like something like that, or maybe do some things if you want to fix the stable advocacy problem, do something in the debate space. But I think just by itself, the way you frame it, saying that we need the debate space to be empowered because the debate space is some sort of unique space, is not warranted by Hendrickson.
Okay. And on the engagement stuff, I just wanted to know how you viewed first the argument that was the cross application from ground that was like, if she is the same ground anyway, even if like this is a bad thing that happens when you affirm, it's not unique to her. Like it's not unique to my app, so there's no actual like additional abuse.
Her argument is that any sort of argument she makes, because you don't have some sort of stable advocacy, you can just shift out of it, right? Through some perm or something, like because you don't have anything stable, it's a moving target. So even if theoretically from the 1AC she could make certain arguments, the 1A argument just kick out of the arguments.
So then I wanted to also ask, how did you view, I guess there were two arguments, was like one, like she gives no bright line for what like an advocacy needs to be or like what good engagement is. So at that point, the engagement that the app provides is like still good. And also like her K doesn't really have an alt, so it's not like we would solve, because it's not like an interpretation like we need to have a political advocacy. She just says like expand outside the debate space. So if this kind of advocacy is considered unstable, So would an advocacy that meets her
So
criticism?
I think regarding your first argument on the engagement stuff, I think her cards at the end of the debate talked about why your engagement isn't actually productive. You're just having some sort of academic moment. I also think I think the no bright line argument is good, but I didn't actually. Maybe you made this and I just missed it. But I think you should also give me a compelling reason for why, like, even if there's no bright line, why you fall on the other side of the bright line. So for instance, I don't know when exactly like a couple of grains of rice becomes a heap of rice, right? I don't know the exact amount of grains, right? But I can say like 3 grains of rice is not a heap, whereas like a million grains of rice is a heap. I think embeddedly the neg does several reasons for why you aren't actually having some sort of engagement. So maybe I don't know exactly what is the bright line, but neg, I think, even though she doesn't explicitly say it, is the bright line is technically like you need to do something in the real world, right? You need to have some real world change, right? That seems to be a regurgitating theme. I don't think she explicitly said, by the way, my bright line is, but that just seems to be a semantic thing. If she didn't say my bright line is this, I think it's a recurring theme throughout both speeches that you just need to have some real world change in some way. So